When someone dies in the custody of Texas law enforcement, state law requires that agency to submit a specific report to the Attorney General detailing the incident. The report is meant to promote transparency and accountability, but our investigation found hundreds of reports in recent years filed incomplete or late, leaving the public and families without answers. We showcased the results of our Dead and Undone project in a new podcast. Earlier this summer, I joined senior investigative producer David Barrere to discuss the project with KXAN Live host Will Dupree.
I'm very glad to see you all and to highlight this project because it is very interesting. And Josh, my first question to you in particular is about what the concept of a custodial death is exactly. So fill in the blank there for us.
When someone dies in the custody of Texas police or Texas law enforcement, that could even be in jails, that law enforcement agency is required by law to submit a custodial death report. This is a very specific form that started being required to be submitted by law back in 1983. And when they fill out this form, basically it tells people a lot of the details that happened with the arrest and with the death. And it can even go so far as to kind of give an indication of the events that led up to that death, if it's detailed enough. At the minimum, it's supposed to give you the basic details about when someone died, how they died, the manner of death, and then a medical examiner's form is usually put in there as well.
And why is that particular form so important?
Well, in Texas, it can be very difficult to get records in a case like this if someone dies in police custody because of different laws and legal loopholes we have here. So this form is one of the only publicly available documents that is supposed to be out there no matter what within 30 days of a death happening. So it should be readily available and accessible to the public, something you can get on the Attorney General's website.
And now turning to you, David, I want to ask you about what started this research last year and what did you discover about these particular reports?
Yeah, so the research started basically after George Floyd was murdered, and there were nationwide protests about police brutality and deaths in police custody. And we knew that we wanted to look into our own state's deaths in custody. So we started investigating that. We went straight to the Attorney General's office because we knew that they kept all these reports that Josh just explained, that the database is there. And we also used something from a nonprofit called the Texas Justice Initiative. They compile that data and they make it publicly available to anyone that can, just get it off their website. And so we used that to start analyzing it and looking into anything really that stuck out to us. And what popped out to us that we covered in our investigation Dead and Undone was these reports that we found were being filed late or incompletely. And this was happening in hundreds of cases around the state. And it had actually gotten worse during the pandemic.
And turning to now you, Josh, we did see the legislative session take up some of these issues, and one state lawmaker actually used the KXAN investigation as part to address this issue.
Yeah, that's right. Some of the cases that we were finding that were submitted incomplete or late were here in the Austin area in Travis County. So we turned to Representative Eddie Rodriguez, a Democrat from Austin, who is a lawyer and also had an interest in criminal justice issues, told him about this. And of course, it was something that he took up and filed legislation, and it made it to a committee hearing in April, and things kind of played out there. We know the importance of having good witnesses in those hearings to really relay the importance of these issues to lawmakers that are considering making certain bills laws. So I decided that it would be a good idea for KXAN to be one of the witnesses to talk about the challenges that we had faced as reporters. And so I decided to go to the Capitol on that hearing day and testify myself. I think we have a clip of that.
From our reporting, we know a custodial death report is an extremely important document for journalists and the families of people who have died in custody. It's also one of the few readily accessible public records detailing what happened in the event of a death. We're hopeful for a solution to further transparency and accountability.
You know, and unfortunately, the bill did not progress to becoming law, but, you know, this is the first time that it's really been taken up to this level because it's largely an issue that had not been debated, the lateness and incompleteness of these records in the legislature till now. So we are confident that we have gotten the attention of lawmakers and they understand the importance of this police transparency aspect, and we're hopeful that it will come back up next legislative session in 2023. And while this bill didn't end the way that many people hoped, we do have some good news about some other police transparency legislation that we have been investigating over the past several years. You may remember the case of Jamie Mayberry out of Kennedy, Texas. He was the gay man who went missing from his family's home in Kennedy, Texas in 1999. That sparked our investigation into the NamUs system here in Texas, which was the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. And we are happy to say a bill has passed this legislative session and the governor signed it into law that will require all police departments and medical examiners' offices to submit missing persons details to this public portal that you or I, any member of the public, can access online, so we can maybe help solve these cases or you know, bring some closure to some families a little faster. So that was a really good win for police transparency legislation right there, Will.
You can find our podcast now online. Just look for the link in this story in the Texas Politics section of this station's website.
Your doctor writes a prescription, then your insurance company questions whether you really need it. But a new Texas law may change the equation, how it could greatly reduce the number of prior authorization delays.